Okay, all right. Sorry about that delay, folks.
Thank you, everybody. Our technology is set, and with that, we will officially call tonight's meeting to order. Our first action of business is approval of tonight's agenda for October 2nd, 2023. Is there a motion? All right, is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Agenda is approved. Now seeking approval of the minutes from our last meeting held September 6th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve? Second, all in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Minutes from last meeting pass. Moving on to our public agenda, there are no scheduled items. However, we do have some space reserved for off-agenda items. If there is any individual present at this time that did not request to speak on the public agenda but would like to do so prior to the rest of our business, you may speak at this time. Is there anybody here that would like to address the DAB? Welcome, sir. And if you would, I think, does he have a mic? Just give him. Oh, nothing. Okay, well, I apologize. But if you would say your name and your address, be helpful.
My name is Jay Russell, 2738 North Curtis. I'm a residential land developer, done a lot of projects out on the west side of town. And I would like to take my 5 minutes to see, I'm planning on coming back to be on the agenda in a month, but I want to kind of breach this conversation with you. All of you have seen the documents that I laid there in front of you. This agenda item from the city is probably the most important thing that you might want to look at. Under that fourth paragraph down, a highly connected street network helps reduce the volume of traffic on major streets. The second one says, I'll come back to that. The issue that we got is that there are some planning commission members and staff members with the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission who believe that cul-de-sacs are no longer popular. We have been told by some of the planning commission members that us developers and marketing people need to get our head out of the 70s, that people don't like cul-de-sacs anymore. So I want to reach this conversation with this group to see if you're in agreement with that. My belief is that cul-de-sacs are the #1 most popular thing that people want to live on. So that's one part of the conversation. The city requires, you see the green handout I gave you? The city requires us to go in and put the access point off of each one of the 3 adjoining properties that we develop. We developed one in the middle, we got property on the other 3 sides. We are required to put an access point to all of those locations. We are in favor in the development community of what's called a contingent street dedication with bicycle and pedestrian access. So what that does is it gives a trigger point to where when somebody comes in and develops a piece of property adjacent to it, let's just say it's 15 years after we've developed the first piece, there's not any trigger right now that makes anybody look at how that other developer may shove all of his traffic down through this existing community. And people do not like that. So all that they have to do right now is adhere to the subdivision regs. And there's no concern over how they design it into this other subdivision. Now, the other issue that we got is that the city is in favor in the planning department of every 1/4 mile, there's another access point onto a major arterial. Our belief is that people now would like one way in and one way out so that they can control it with some type of a camera. Now, on this particular one right here that I gave you, there is a one way in and one way out right here, the main entrance. And then there's another, what's called a FAR, Fire Apparatus Access Road. And that is right here on this side. Now, when the original property was designed, it was just this middle piece here. We've since purchased the ground to the west of it. It goes out to the Colwich Road. And because of the amount of houses that are in there, there's 500 of them, There is a second access point in addition to the fire apparatus access road that is right here. But instead of having 6 or 7 different access points, we only have 2 that we can control with cameras. So I want, when I come back in a month, I'd like to hear from you guys and say if some of these things that we're talking about, and I'll have a better agenda for you then. I'd like for you to see if maybe you can get some input with some of your neighbors or maybe your personal opinions to see if the city's on the right track or if the developers are on the right track for what we've been doing for the last 40, 50 years. I run out of time.
I got 40 seconds left.
Okay. So any questions?
So Jay, I got a quick one. So what do your cells say? Your cells say that cul-de-sacs are more profitable, or you sell more of those than you do through streets?
It's not, it's about the safety. People allow their children to play in the street. I'm not saying they're supposed to or they're allowed to, but this design of this Talia subdivision out here, you'll notice how long all those cul-de-sacs are. And they are all open-ended cul-de-sacs at the end. What it allows to happen is somebody from the far west side can let their child out in the front and walk all the way down that street without crossing a street and go to the park in the middle and then walk across the park to get to the other side. Cul-de-sacs are the #1 most popular thing and what we sell. And we're attempting to limit the amount of access points out onto major roads. And my ultimate goal personally is one way in and one way out on most subdivisions because of crime and traffic flow.
And that would meet current subdivision regulations.
Yes. Well, let me back up. One way in and one way out is not part of the current subdivision regulations. That would be a change.
But you, if you had emergency access, you could still do that.
Yes.
One way in, one way out.
That's
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Anybody else in attendance this evening that would like to address? Oh, okay. All right.
That's your-
All right, with that, we will move to our board agenda, which is item 3, updates, issues, and reports. Dear Councilmember Fry.
Yeah, don't have a lot to report tonight. We have a heavy agenda, so I didn't have anything prepared to speak on. We do have the November meeting will be at our water treatment facility at the administration building. And then we're gonna have a district breakfast in December at that same facility. So yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't have a lot, but because of the agenda, I figured save the time for that.
All good.
Unless anybody has any questions or other concerns. We are continuing to work on, I will tell you, one thing that we are working very strongly right now is housing and homeless for the winter. It's a big concern. We're seeing an increase in the number of homelessness in the city right now. It's going to be a higher demand for homeless shelter during the winter. And so the city is working on contingency plans to help with that. We also have the our group looking for the combination on campus, what we're calling the MAC, which is the Multi-Agency Center, which would be a congregate shelter, a permanent congregate shelter, navigation center for people that are needing services, and then multifamily housing. And so we've got that out on the streets and looking at different proposals right now. That's really the priority. So.
Any other questions for Councilmember Fry? Okay, seeing none, moving on to our staff reports. Item number 4, we'll start with our Wichita Public Library report. Tracy on Zoom.
You guys never start with me. I was not prepared for that. The first thing that I want to mention is the Wichita Public Library is doing a card design contest for citizens. It's for all ages. We will be taking entries through Friday, October 27th. But basically, we will have 3 categories: children, teens, and adults. And there will be an individual who designs a card for each of those categories that will win. And then their card will be mass produced and actually distributed starting in the winter. And people will actually get to pick which card they want. So if you know of anyone with artistic talent, you have artistic talent, this is your chance to actually shine and enter the contest and have your cards handed out to citizens. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the Wichita Public Library is collaborating with Watermark Books and Cafe. Watermark Books and Cafe is actually bringing Craig Johnson, who is a really talented author. He has actually written the Walt Longmire mystery series, and they have based a Netflix television series after that. And he will actually be at the Advanced Learning Library on Tuesday, October 10th at 6 o'clock. And they will be doing a book discussion, a Q&A, and a book signing. So that's incredibly exciting. It really is to promote his latest work, which is called The Longmire Defense. Another thing that I wanted to mention is to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. The Evergreen Community Center and Library will be showing the North End Wichita Historical Society documentary, Las Nuevas Adelitas, The Power of Women, on Saturday, October 14th at 2:30 p.m. It's on women's fight for independence. It's specifically about the Queen competition, which was for scholarships and educational opportunities to be able to fight for better lives for Hispanic Americans. Another thing that I wanted to mention is this month's October Tuesday Topics program will be an opportunity to meet the candidates for the mayor race. And basically those candidates will have an opportunity to talk about their ideas. That will be actually on Tuesday, October 24th at 6 p.m. at our Advanced Learning Library. And then the final thing that I want to mention is all Wichita Public Libraries will actually be closed on Monday, October 9th. We are having an all-staff in-service so that we can get the knowledge to serve our community better. And those are the things that I wanted to share this month. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions, Tracy? Thorough as always. Thank you very much, Tracy.
Well, thank you, and I hope you guys have a great night.
Moving on to our community police report. Officer Keenan.
Hello, everybody. I'm Officer Lori Kimmery. I am the community policing officer for 19 beat and 11 beat, which basically is everything north of 17th from, we'll say, Amadon to where we are now. So it's a huge area. I don't want to say this too loud, but I don't have a whole lot to report. Just good news. So I did look the last couple of weeks. This area really hasn't had any violent person crimes, so that's good news. I have opened up, and this is, I mean, it's kind of on District 5, but so 13th Street in between Zoo Boulevard and so if you think about the street that is just east of 235 and Central, you go straight north on that, that's Hoover, and it curves around and it turns into 13th and it goes to Zoo Boulevard. Because of the Zoo Street Bridge being worked on, we've had increase in traffic there. So I did put our cell stat box up there and realized that there's some speeding going on. So our traffic officers are hitting it hard. They've been out there for a little bit over a week, and let's see, they've issued, I think so far, 30 tickets, and the range of speed is everything from what they're citing for is 40 to 50 miles an hour, and it's a 30-mile-an-hour zone. So people are using that as a thoroughfare because of, I think, the bridge being out. So there's increased traffic there, but they are working on it. They are very aware of it. Our Second Chance Thursday event went well. We had less turnout this time. Our next one's probably going to be in January, and probably going to be at the Evergreen Rec Center. We're hoping. We don't have it solidified yet. And the majority of our complaints right now are property line issues and parking lot complaints and abandoned units. So that's good news. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Good job.
Thank you.
Moving on to our fire department.
Not like you guys are busy tonight, so I won't take too much of your time either. Much like the officer just said, this was a quiet month for fires in this area as it usually. I'm sorry, I'm John Egg, Battalion Chief. I manage 6 stations, basically from the Big Ditch west, so all the way from as far north and south as you can go west. So. And your district commonly has the fewest amount of fires, so it's good. But I will touch on a couple fires we had around town because of the way they started and the time of year. If you've been to these meetings, you heard me mention it before, but deck fires and smoking, especially common right now when people sit outside, have a cigar, have a cigarette, don't dispose of it properly. In September alone around town, we've had well over $200,000 of damage just from bad smoking. There's habits, getting rid of it the wrong way. It needs to be a metal can anymore. But as far as your district, it's been really quiet this month. One other thing we have going is the fire prevention week. You probably heard of it. We do it every October. So starting Monday through Saturday, there'll be different events going on in town. That we have a mobile prevention unit that goes around to the schools, and then you'll see a lot of our fire trucks at the schools giving safety talks to kids get their 911 trucks. But it's always geared towards safety issues. Tuesday will be at the zoo, so Wednesday at the Y. If anybody has any questions about this, you can call me or send an email and you guys can get a hold of me and see what's going on there. Friday, if there's something going on at City Hall, convention event at City Hall. So anyways, the message this year, the safety message that we're working on is cooking issues. I have a lot of fires in kitchens and it's almost always from unattended cooking. We've all done it, we forget it's turned on and we walk away or distracted. So that's going to be the main message this month. Every year we do a certain message. So we teach about grease fires, about smothering, not putting water in grease fires and all those things. So that's the main thing we have going on right now. Any questions on any of that?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, rounding out our staff reports, turn it over to our park and rec department.
How's everybody tonight? David McGuire with Park and Recreation Department. I might mention, I don't know if there's any tennis players in here, but if you haven't been down by the Riverside Tennis Center lately, we've got all the courts pretty well redone. We've got the pickleball courts. We just redid the interior of the clubhouse and everything. And that is becoming a really nice tennis center. So if you're a racket player, you need to head down to Riverside Tennis Center because it's becoming one of the nicest facilities in the Midwest here. Really nice. So go by and check it out. Also might mention our Open Streets event was here September 16th and it was very well attended again. I think there were more dogs than bicycles. Everybody's got to bring their dog down there, you know, so dog park thing, you know, so that was good. So anyway, as far as park maintenance, we're still doing routine work. We're starting to trend towards our list of winter work, which we have a big long list of winter work that we never ever get completely gone through. So we're starting to head that way. However, the weather's staying warm, you know, it's like summer out there still. So we are going to start closing down the restrooms in the parks, which people are going to be out in the parks and they're going to wonder why we're closing down the restrooms. You still have to winterize the restrooms because the average first freeze is here the first part of October. So we will be closing down the restrooms here shortly. All the splash pads have closed down. They closed down last week. So we're getting all of that done. My forestry department, work group, they're continuing with regular routine work as well. For this year's Arbor Day, you know, we usually celebrate Arbor Day in April, but this year we're doing it in October because we wanted to do this big tree planting exercise. And we've got USD 259 on board, and we've picked a park out. It's called Alice Wall Park. It's down on South Hoover. And we're going to try to plant 700 trees in a day. And so we're trying to get 300 kids there. And so it's going to become an instant forest in 30 years. You know, so it could be really cool. So that's going to be our Arbor Day celebration. Park projects and construction, they've been working on repairing signs and replacing bollards and fence. We've got several memorial park benches yet to install. Our recreation division, Watson Parks Christmas Express is coming up. It'll be starting November. I can't believe it's that time. All the holidays are going to be hitting here pretty quick. Fall classes have started. So I've got the Evolve magazine over there, which has all the recreation classes. It's got library activities. It's got Indian Center activities, Cowtown. So there's a lot more information than just Parks and Recreation in that. So you might grab an Evolve magazine before you leave. I don't know how many of you have noticed that we have some self-serve kayak stations down on the river. So if you want to try your hand at kayaking, you can go rent one for an hour, go out and kayak, and then just shove it back in the deal, shut the little gate, and you can just rent it right there and not have to go buy a kayak. You can just use our kayaks. And you got it down at Watson Park as well. So that's pretty cool. We have lots of stuff going on in the winter. There's a candy crawl coming up here at the end of October. It's going to be over in Platt Park. This magazine is just full of things to do. So check it out. You can go online and register for classes and so forth. Well, we've got a lot of stuff going on. And so that's my report. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. No questions? So, all right.
I'm curious of the self-serve kayak, can you rent a life vest or do you have to bring your own?
You do not, it's not required. But you can.
They have life vests. I went kayaking.
Well, you're right. They are there. You get 2 kayak vests or life jackets with your rental.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
But it's also about 3 feet deep.
Any questions for David this evening?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, that concludes our staff reports. We do have an action to receive and file all of them. Is there a motion from the board? I hear a second now?
Second.
Okay, all right. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Action passes and reports are filed. Okay, that brings us to our new business for the evening. Item number 8, consolidated plan entitlement funding. Andrew Tyree. And other people. Yeah, it's really, hey, welcome.
I'll go ahead and get started. The first couple of slides are pretty introductory. My name is Logan Bradshaw. I'm the Assistant Director of Housing and Community Services with the City of Wichita. And tonight, me and my team are here to speak with you about the 2024 to 2029 HUD Consolidated Plan, as well as the first program year annual action plan. And so each year, we do receive funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on an entitlement basis, and we are to utilize those funds to create livable and sustainable communities and affordable housing for Wichitans. And so I was hoping the PowerPoint was up, because we're about to get into it. Right. This slide is going to give you an overview of what funds we receive from HUD on an annual basis. The first one is our Community Development Block Grant, or our CDBG program. This is by far and large our most flexible funding source, and it can be used for a wide variety of community development needs. Our next grant is going to be our Home Investment Partnerships program. This is all about the creation of affordable housing for Wichitans. And then the last one is ESG. This is our grant that we utilize to address homelessness in Wichita. As you can see, we have our funding amounts for our current program year outlined on the bottom of the slide. For CDBG, we received just under $3 million. And ESG, as you can tell, that's a much smaller grant. We received $255,000 for the current program year. So before we dive into specifics of consolidated planning and annual action plans, we felt that it was prudent to educate you on what a consolidated plan is. And so a consolidated plan is a tool that helps jurisdictions assess both affordable housing and community development needs in order to determine investment and spending priorities for a 5-year period. And so we are required to submit a 5-year con plan that dictates funding, outline, and spending priorities for CDBG Home as well as ESG. We are required to submit that to HUD every 5 years. For every individual year within that 5-year planning process, we are required to create what's called a program year annual action plan. Think about this as bringing the con plan down to more of a granular level. And so it's actually going to outline specific funding amounts for specific projects that we hope to accomplish over that program year. So unfortunately, HUD does not make anything easy, and our program year, really true. Our program year for these funds runs from the middle of one year to the middle of the next year. And so our con plan period that we're currently planning for will run from July 1st, 2024, all the way through June 30th of 2029. And we are required to submit our plan for the con plan for HUD's review and approval, as well as the plan for our first program year annual action plan to HUD on May 15th of next year, ahead of that 5-year period. Before I kick it over to Andrew to give you an idea of how we have spent these funds and strategized the use of these funds in the current 5-year period for CDBG Home ESG, I wanted to give you an idea of what our planning process typically looks for a consolidated plan. And so we started this planning process back in May. We were working through preliminary calendar planning and charting. We also were working through a procurement with our procurement office, the city's finance department, to bring on a consultant to help provide expertise to our department in this process. This is something that we have never done before as a city, but that other jurisdictions across the country do. It is a fairly technical process that involves a quite extensive period of public engagement, as well as data analysis and analysis of market trends. And so we started those agency consultations once we had our consultant on board in September, as well as started soliciting the public's input on high-level community needs and priorities. That will take us through to the end of this month, when we hope to go to a city council workshop to present preliminary consultation results as well as what we are hearing as far as community needs. And basically present a high-level plan for how we would like to see the consolidated plan go at that time. And then once we present that in the council workshop, get the council's feedback, we will then really get into the nitty-gritty of drafting that consolidated plan and annual action plan. After we draft the consolidated plan and the annual action plan, we will bring that back out for public comment as required by regulation. Part of that process will be coming back to the district advisory board to hear how we did in taking the community needs that were outlined and then incorporating them into the plan. And then we will, of course, submit our plan to HUD in May of 2024. And at this point, I'd like to kick it over to Andrew Tyree, again, to give you an overview of how we have strategized these funds in the past. As you listen through his presentation, one thing I would challenge you to do is keep at the forefront of your mind, what are community needs based in District 5 and what are community needs based in Wichita at large?
Thanks, Logan. As Logan mentioned, so I'm gonna give a kind of a high level overview of the CDBG program. This is, before I do that, just kind of give you a brief rundown of CDBG. CDBG, in order for an activity to qualify for CDBG, it has to meet one of 3 national objectives, which benefit low to mod income persons, prevent summer blights, and address urgent community needs. Must be used for eligible spending activity, and not less than 70% of spending must benefit low to moderate income persons. There is a limit on public service categories, and we'll go over our public service here in a moment. We're pretty public service heavy here in Wichita, but there is a limit there of a little over 1.1 million. Funds can only be used based on an MOU, memorandum of understanding. That's with other city departments. If it goes outside the city, then we have an RFP process for the interactional services with private vendors. And then funds cannot be allocated to a specific provider or for an ineligible purpose. So just some of the things that our department that we're doing in the city of Wichita with CDBG, infrastructure and park improvements to low mod income neighborhoods. We have our economic development program that we have here, home repair program that's very popular in our city, where you have homeowners that can apply for repairs through the CDBG. And then we have our MABCD, demolition and clearance of unsafe structures. Those that goes towards eliminating blights in the city. And when we talked about public services, this kind of lays it out here. To the city manager's office, we have our Office of Community Services. This is Atwater Center. This is Colvin, and this is Evergreen. Goes into the services there that helps pay overhead costs for the staff. We have our Housing First project coordinator that we fund in our department. I'll talk more about Housing First here in just a moment. And then we have our domestic violence shelter services. That's at Stepstone Catholic Charities Harbor House, and then Wichita Family Crisis Center that we help fund. Youth crime prevention and enrichment, that goes for YMCA's middle school after school program, Kansas Big Brothers Big Sisters. And then we have our training and employment program. That's our TWTW, our youth summer youth employment program. Every summer we employ kids ages 14 to 17 to look for jobs in the city of Wichita. And then through our home funding strategy, home ownership activities, our Home 80 program that we have that counts for down payment assistance. Our home developments, redevelopment activities, our home development loan program, and that goes towards new construction or rehabilitation for owner occupancy or rental properties. And then we have our community housing development organization, or CHODO, set aside. 15% of our funding is required to go towards CHODOs. And then for ESG, we have our homeless assistance. That's our winter shelters, the shelters that we have across Wichita. We have our homeless prevention. This is Center of Hope, Salvation Army. This is going towards actually preventing people from becoming homeless, housing, rental assistance, utility assistance, rapid rehousing, That's for folks, that's for individuals that are currently homeless that just need a little help with their rent utilities for a few months and then get back on their feet and come out of homelessness. And then, as Logan mentioned, we have partnered with our WFN Consulting to help with our consolidated plan. Before I turn it over to them, just a little bit about how that came about. Funding from 22-23 program year was set aside to hire a consultant to help us prepare for this upcoming consolidated plan. In May 2023, the search for consultants began with the release of our RFP, and then in July of this year, WFN was chosen to lead the development of the consolidated plan. And I'll turn it over to WFN right now. Eric.
Hello, everybody. I'm Erica Ambrose with WFN Consulting. Happy to be here. Happy to, Logan and Andrew gave us a great tour of the city today. So we got to go into most of the districts. I think we're gonna see some stuff as we continue on to all of the DAB meetings. So we're excited to get started with that. WFN Consulting, we are a program management firm. We assist cities and counties with developing consolidated plans, action plans, fair housing documents. In some of our jurisdictions, we actually administer those grant programs, much like what Logan and Andrew do here for the city. So our company's been in existence for over 40 years, started back by Mr. William Frank Newton, hence the WFN. So I've been with the company, I think that's my next slide, but we can just talk about it. I've been here about 13 years, have a good amount of experience preparing consolidated plan. I personally probably done, well over 60 plans. So it's what I enjoy. It's what I like. I like getting out in the community, meeting people and finding out ways that we can use existing funds to assist with improving communities. And the CDBG grants, the home grants, the ESG grants, they're wonderful resources for us to be able to do that. And then with me here today is LaShondra Wells. She's back in the back. And she's been with us for about 8 years now and had quite a bit of experience preparing consolidated plans and really working in the community, administering those grant programs. So we're excited to be able to work on this. We don't know this one. Okay, this is what we get back to. Just wanted to see if you all had any feedback for us today regarding the 5-year consolidated plan. I know Logan asked a specific question earlier. What are some of the needs that your district is facing? And then what are some community-wide needs? So at this time, we'd like to hear from you all.
Feedback or comment from the board related to this plan?
As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we are seeing an increase in our homeless population. And so having these resources available to us, especially with the winter and having a winter shelter is key. So I know a lot of input and discussion on that. Same with the MAC, Multi-Agency Center. Trying to get that identified location for that and developed is so critical. Again, the key is having the mix of affordable housing, which is the subsidized, then also housing that's affordable, so that people have options. Having a variety of housing units is so important. We're behind on a number of units in this community, so having that mix of both affordable housing and housing that's affordable is really what we're trying to focus.
To that, I was maybe curious to that end, given the homelessness issue in our community and across many communities. I think the figure you showed for the ESG portion of the grant was around 255,000 for the next 5 years. Or each year, okay.
That's That's what we're currently receiving. And so those amounts that you see there will give you a ballpark at what we could expect to receive on an annual basis. ESG is a lot smaller of a grant in terms of the entire United States population, which is why that amount is so much smaller. One question we get sometimes is, can we move funds from one grant to another? And unfortunately, we can't. Now, one thing you can do with CDBG funds is address homelessness. And so if that's something that would be something that you would like to see done, I definitely want to hear that, but.
I think ultimately where I was going is big issues and big resources often, and though I know we probably have little control over the amount that HUD provides. I don't know what the budget needed for these issues are, but if that ESG could be complemented with other funds to help address, then I think that would be the feedback I would provide.
Else? In terms of needs? I ask a question. Is it okay? I've been doing a lot of study around town about the contaminated water. And it's very unknown if the soil in District 1 is also contaminated. And I do know there are HUD houses in that area. I want to make sure that there's an understanding that soil is not contaminated. Build a house and the groundwater.
That's a really good point. And so any type of HUD funding, whether that be CDBG funding or home funding, goes into a housing development project, has to pass what's called an environmental review. And one thing that we look at as part of that process is actually groundwater contamination plumes. We look at a number of databases. And if a property is within 3,000 feet, then we are actually doing what's called an ASTM standard practice form that we have to fill out to evaluate if that groundwater contamination plume could have an adverse effect or affect the property in any way. And in order for a house to ultimately be developed on that, it has to be free of all contaminants, including what's being mentioned. So that is something that, because of our funding source, it's a level of due diligence that we have to complete prior to development projects. So thank you for that.
The comments, questions, or feedback.
Just got a quick question on funding. So is it more of a formulary deal for HUD? And they just say, hey, Wichita gets this much, it's not based on need.
That's correct. It's based on our population and poverty rate.
And HUD's and Congress's funding levels. So Congress will ultimately say CDBG gets this much and it's divvied out amongst all the branches.
So do you see that going up or down in the next? Yes.
Okay, I'll just speak for my time with CDBG. In my 13 years, I've seen kind of a decrease once, and it was a drastic decrease, about 30% drop. But that's only been once in my time. Usually it's a increase, sometimes a couple of percentage points increase. So, and that's year over year.
Our home funding about, I believe 8 years ago was down to about $1 million, and now it's up to about 1.7.
And I think that was the year I was referring to. Yep.
Yeah, to spend that every year.
So we have different spending timeframes for each grant.
Erica, Lashondra, welcome to Team Wichita. Glad to work with you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate your time and effort.
And we would encourage you to fill the survey out too. There's a QR code that'll take you there. That's a survey that we're doing as well. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Logan.
Right. Item number 9 is from our Metropolitan Area Planning Department for a conditional use case. Christina with us tonight?
Yes. You want me to come to the podium?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christina Reith. I'm Associate Planner with the Metropolitan Area Planning Department. This is case number CON 2023-00049. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use to allow an accessory apartment on a property zoned SF5 single family residential district. This property is located at 357 North Westfield Avenue. currently developed with a 2,200 square foot single family home with an attached garage and a detached shed. Accessory apartments are subject to supplementary use regulations that are listed in your report. So there's a maximum of 1 accessory apartment shall be compatible. It shall be compatible with the main dwelling unit. It should remain accessory to and under the same ownership as a principal single family dwelling unit. And the water and sewer service has to be connected. So the applicant proposes to demolish the existing shed to construct a 14-foot by 24-foot accessory apartment. It will sit about 6 feet from the side property line. The applicant is proposing to bring a prefabricated metal shed onto the site for the use of the accessory apartment. But in staff's opinion, that is not compatible with the main dwelling unit nor the character of the neighborhood. So we suggest revising the design a little bit for the exterior of the proposed accessory apartment prior to the issuance of building permits. Because we'll see the site photos here that the house in question has a brick veneer to it. So we want something that has more, maybe not brick, but maybe traditional building materials. So there are no zoning cases associated with this property. It's in conformance with the community investments plan. If you look at the future growth concept map, which is a couple slides down here. One more. Yep. So it identifies the site as residential. So based upon the information available prior to public hearings, planning staff recommends that the request be approved, subject to the conditions that are listed in your staff report. The recommendations are based on the golden rules that we all follow for all staff reports. I'll just skip ahead to the last one, opposition or support of the neighborhood residents. So I still haven't received any comments from the public. I did receive one phone call because he was driving by, saw the development application for accessory apartment, and he's like, apartments? And I was like, no, just one dwelling unit. So with that, if you wouldn't mind going to site photos. So that is the house there, the shed that's there, that's gonna be torn down for the accessory apartment. And then we have another one where you're looking across the street and another where you're looking at the back. And with that, I will stand for questions. If not, the applicant is here to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Christina. With that, we'll bring it to the DAB for any questions. Planning department.
Quick question. Where's the parking gonna be? Is it just, I assume this is like a mother-in-law suite type of thing and they'll just park in the same.
Sister-in-law, we.
There you go.
Yeah, I have it.
Are you the applicant?
I'm ready. My wife Sandy and I moved here 20 months ago from McPherson, where I'd been since I was 5. 2 of our kids and 5 of our 8 grandkids. Thrilled to be here. We have a 75-year-old sister-in-law who's mentally handicapped, who's still in McPherson. She moved there for us to take care of her. In moving up here, we didn't have any way of bringing her. And so we tried to get her here. And to be honest, I would put her in my house if I had the room. A, but B, she has 6 cats. And I already have 3 cats. I'm pretty well catted out. So that's the plan. The building would be basically an open building that ends to use it as a storage facility / man cave. Whenever she gets to a point that she no longer can stay there. But it would just be adjacent right there to our house. It'd be easy for us to help take care of her. Be very minimal walls. In fact, the only wall at all outside of the main floor would be to leave an area for storage like a golf cart or something.
That does, thank you.
Other questions from the board before we open it up to public comment?
One more question. I don't really have a problem with this. I think I like the staff comments and recommendations. The only question I have is, can it be rented? Like, they move, I mean, is it a,
Technically it can be, yes.
just have to be all the utilities have to stay in the.
Correct.
I was a little hard-headed. The question could be rented.
Yeah.
It is not our intention at all. I can't even park the cars in the garage yet. The quicker I can put my stuff
Well,
out.
and so the reason I ask is because like if you guys move in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years.
Right.
We still have that, and the neighbors could be like, hey, the next owner could rent it out.
No, understand. I've been a realtor for 41 years. So I enjoyed the conversation earlier. I will tell you, this cul-de-sac still is a real power ride with anybody that has kids home. Because you limit the speed that they can at least travel one way, maybe going out to go a little too fast, going in once.
Okay, any comments from the public attendance this evening for Christina for the applicant? We'll bring discussion back to the board. There is a recommended action to approve with the conditions noted. Is there anybody? Motion.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion on the table, for the approval noted in the, board. Second, all in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
One last comment, I would like to thank this young lady in that old park. They have been wonderful to work with. Get young to town at 12,000. Wichita, you kind of wonder what you're getting into. Wonderful people, I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Christina, we're gonna stay with you for a planned unit development. That sound right?
I'm just gonna grab a report here. Just so I can put it in our system, how many staff members are present? There are nine, and then one online. Yes, okay, thanks. So this one's, I'm sorry?
Oh, we're just making sure we have the count accurate. With those.
Oh,
Your PUD.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm PUD, but if you wanna, we can present the con now, that's fine.
No, I get it.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So this is case number PUD 2023-09. The applicant is requesting an amendment to plan unit development number 115, the WNBA athletics plan unit development. The applicant would like to add 3 tracts of land to the PUD to reflect the approved platted boundary. These are currently rights of way, and they total 0.6 acres in size. This PUD is generally located on the south side of West 21st Street North, within 1/2 mile west of North 135th Street West. So anytime you're adding or subtracting land from PUD, that requires a public hearing. So that's why I'm with you guys today for this report. So these rights of way that are in question, they stem off of West 21st Street North and North Sunrise Street, but they do not include North Sunrise Street. They'll be incorporated into the PUD's only parcel, which is parcel 1, and they will remain subject to the provisions of the PUD, and there are no changes to the general provisions other than the acreage. So you guys may recall that on September 12th, the Wichita City Council approved the zone change from single-family residential to planned unit development to create this PUD. The requested zone change is in conformance with the community investments plan because the 2035 Wichita Future Growth Concept Map identifies the area to be appropriate for new residential and new residential employment mix. Skipping ahead here, based on the information available at the time of the public hearing, staff recommends approval of this application subject to the provisions of the YMCA Athletics Plan Unit Development and the conditions that are listed in the staff report. The recommendations are based on the goals. And I have not received any public comment regarding this. It's pretty straightforward. Teresa, if you actually want to pull up the graphic, just showing, if we go to if we scroll up, actually. One more. So that was right here. That was the previously approved PUD. And then if you scroll one down, that is the new land that they are adding to PUD. So pretty straightforward. And with that, I will stand for questions. And if not, the agent for the applicant is here to answer any questions that I may not be able to answer.
Questions from the board? PUD.
I have a question or whether or not, it's like, what? Didn't we just approve this? I guess I'm not understanding. Yeah.
Did not have that. No.
Oh, you've got like 0.2 more acres that you need in this land.
You might explain the additions for the last time.
Good evening, I'm Brian Lindback, MPAC Engineering, 411 North Web, on behalf of the owner and applicant. So this property, the larger property that you've already approved, was under contract with, the church actually owned it. They didn't own the slivers of ground that are around it, and those were privately owned, and they're private slivers of ground. They're private roads effectively. However, they were never developed as roads. So an offer was presented to that owner of those slivers before we filed the application, and things didn't kind of come together. They did come together after we got to the finish line, or near to the finish line, and so we got that under contract and with that owner, and we annexed those two slivers in, and then we've got to amend the boundary of the PUD. And we have filed a plat that goes along with this, so if you're following along with that process is more or less done. We just have to go to council with that item as well. So we'll try to take all items together to council, probably assuming we receive approval tonight. And I do have updated copies of the law of the PUD that was revised prior to this meeting.
Any other questions, board? Okay, turning to public. Anybody here with any questions on this item? Okay, we will return discussion to the board. Might there be anybody with a motion to approve the recommended action? There is a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Recommended action passes. Very much.
Chris, did they give yays online? Ashlyn, Grace, did you give yays?
Yes, I put it in the chat and Grace has as well. We both voted aye for approval.
Yeah, sorry.
But
Thank you, Ashley.
number 11, another conditional use. Will be Brad.
Yes, good evening. My name is Brad Etherly, Senior Planner for the Metropolitan Area Planning Department. We're here to discuss CON 2023-00042. This is a conditional use request to permit a vehicle and equipment sales use on really only the front 1/3 of the property of this area zone limited commercial. This is a property that actually has 3 parcels with 2 different zoning. Most of it is, I believe, general commercial, but the very front portion of it fronting West 21st Street is limited commercial. And that's what they're asking for today. The site is currently used by the applicant to clean and detail vehicles that they are selling. The applicant proposes the conditional use so that customers who buy vehicles online can come to the location to pick them up. Vehicle sales is a permitted use in the limited commercial district zoning, subject to the supplementary use regulations, the Unified Zoning Code, as a conditional use. The proposed site plan adheres to all required setback and parking requirements set by the Unified Zoning Code. They're not actually going to be doing anything to any of the buildings. They're literally just trying to have it easier for their customers to come up and pick up their cars that they bought online. Screening is required to the north because it borders the residential zone. However, a 6-foot wall is already located on the north and east property lines. In 1986, the Board of Zoning Appeals allowed an exception to the northern lot, which is zoned SF5, single family residential, renting an ancillary parking lot on the property. The requested vehicle sales use is in conformance with the community investments plan, which identifies the subject property as appropriate for commercial development. If you can go to that future map, Teresa. Yeah, right there. So that big brown blob is for new employment. So obviously that's going to be a commercial area. Based on the information available at the time of the staff report was prepared, it is recommended that the request be approved, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. And that recommendation is based on our open rules. Staff did not receive any comments for this application. The case was reviewed and approved by the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission on September 28th. Teresa, if you don't mind going to the site photos real quick. Yeah, just really, those are the two best pictures to describe the area. That's kind of looking north from West 21st. You can see the parking in front of the building, and then just to the east of the building as it goes back to that back lot where they kind of detail their cars. So that's the street I did. I can stand for questions. I'm assuming I'm new here, been here for about 6 weeks, so I don't know all the agents and applicants yet. So I'm hoping that somebody who is related to the case is also here. Maybe not.
Well, welcome, Brad. We're glad you're here. Thank you.
Are we getting one of those cool Carvana towers?
I don't think so. But I don't know either.
No, it's not allowed. That's true.
Questions or comments from the board for Senator this evening? Seeing none. Anyone from the public wishing to make a comment or question on this item? We'll bring it back to the board. Anybody willing to make a motion on this?
Motion to approve. Based on staff recommendation.
Motion to adopt the recommended action. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Vote on the floor. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Ashton and Grace will look for your votes in the chat. With that, motion passes. All right, Brad, we're gonna stick with you for item number 12. Community unit plan.
Yes, again, Brad Everly, senior planner for DMA. This is for CUP 2023-00029. This is for a request for a minor amendment to CUP PP 164, also to permit a vehicle sales use on the properties. We have a 3.79 acre property that's located at 8515 and 8535 West 21st Street North. These are parcels 5A and 5B of this community unit plan. Parcel 5A is zoned LC limited commercial, and vehicle sales would normally be allowed through a conditional use. Parcel 5B is zoned GC general commercial, and vehicle sales would normally be permitted by right, but the community unit plan does not specify those as uses permitted by right in the plan. So if given the opportunity to use this use, no other parcel in CUP 164 would be allowed in vehicle sales use. It would only be for those two parcels. The site on the east side is currently used as a car wash. The site on the east is currently used as an enterprise rental car agency and as automotive repair. Vehicle sales is a permitted use in the LC commercial district zoning subject to the supplementary use regulations X of the Unified Zoning Code, which are listed in the staff report. Staff does believe that parcel 5B should also be required to adhere, even though they are GC and they wouldn't need to, but because the CUP originally was considered all LC, we think that it should also adhere to that supplementary use regulation, if that makes sense. And I'll explain the history of why that's not LC shortly. Screening is required to the south because it borders the residential zone. A 6-foot wall is already located on the south property line, so that is already in conformance. And then a little bit of history of the subject. In 1994, the Board of Zoning Appeals allowed an exception to permit a car wash on that parcel 5A on the east. And in 2009, the city of Wichita approved a zone change for parcel 5B, west side there, from LC to GC, to allow vehicle sales for car rentals. So not full-blown vehicle sales, which is what they're asking for now, but just for the enterprise car rental. Also approved was a minor amendment to the CUP to allow automotive repair as a use on that parcel 5B. The requested vehicle sales use is in conformance with community investments plan, which identifies the subject property as appropriate for commercial district or commercial development. That same ground block that we saw earlier applies to this property as well. Staff does recommend approval for the amendment to the community unit plan, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. Again, this recommendation is based on the golden rules. Staff has received no public comments on this application, and the case was reviewed and approved at the MAPC on September 28th. And Teresa, I asked again to allow us for some pictures. So this is looking away to the east from the car wash, that first picture, then looking north of the car wash. There we are looking into the site on the left hand side, into the car wash, looking into the site from West 21st Street. And then we're looking away from the enterprise rental car, parcel 5B, to the west. And we are looking south into the car wash. Yeah, just looking into the site from the west and east. And again, I don't know if any agents are here, but I can also try to answer any questions. Thank you very much. I'll meet you after.
Thanks again, Brad. Questions, comments from the board? Seeing none, questions or comments from the public?
No, I'm just trying to clarify. I'm sorry, just trying to clarify.
Would you mind coming up to the front? It's the podium. Say your name and address if you wouldn't mind.
I'm Diane Close at 1326 Country Acres. I just want clarification. This property is, instead of enterprise rental cars, it would be commercial. I mean, just a car lot. Is that?
Yeah, and I can answer. I guess it doesn't have a microphone, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure. The agent might be able to answer that.
Answer it for you. My name is Greg Ferris, and I represent the owners of the property. The idea was for enterprise to be able to also sell cars. They can't sell them, they can only rent them there based on what's current. The car wash is going to go away, and that would be for car sales.
So with large lights, I mean, I know it's an apartment complex to the south.
That was when he was referring to the supplemental use regulations. They are the strict requirements that talk about lighting, talk about landscaping, talk about all those things in supplemental use regulations that restrict what can be done that's added as one of the conditions is that it complies with the supplement.
Well, you were saying on the south side, there's a 6-foot fence. A 6-foot fence to a 2-story apartment complex doesn't really protect those residents in the apartment.
Sure. There's a car wash there now, so there's already the same, type of stuff that you would expect. With the supplemental use regulations, though, they have to do a lot of different things, and that's one of the things that protects that area.
I just wanted clarification because,
Enterprise will still be there. That's why we did 2 separate lots. Enterprise is still over there. They'll now be able to sell cars as well. And the owner owns it.
okay.
Thank you for the question. Yes, would you mind coming up to the podium? Please?
Sure.
Name and address.
My name is Randy Timish. I live at 242 North Woodchuck Street, and this is not particularly my area. But I want to ask about this car wash. Is there going to be another car wash put in there like Club and Zips and Charlie's and Tommy's Express, any of those?
There's a car wash there now. He's taking it out.
I mean, nothing, those type of car washes, they're not putting
Not
out.
planning a car wash. He would still be able to do a car wash if he decided to do that instead of car sales.
I'm okay with a business doing that. I'm not okay with another Zips. So that's just what I want to clarify.
Yeah, I don't think, his
So
whole
it's permitted by
purpose-
right now.
You
He
can
could
put
do a
it in
zip
Zips.
there right now.
Those
But
are
that's
the
not his
most-
plan. His plan is to
Good.
get rid of the car wash because it's become an attractive nuisance, basically.
Car washes have terrible noise pollution.
Well, they also
It
have
ruins
a lot of-
neighborhoods.
a lot of theft anymore too, so that's one of the reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Other questions from the public this evening on this agenda item? Bring it back to the board.
So I want to follow up on in terms of the lighting. So right now, it is a car wash, we transition out to car sales. I know that there is in terms of conditional use and things of that nature. The 6-foot fence and the lighting, is there going to be lighting that will be erected that will exceed that fence that will potentially be a hindrance to the residents over there?
Supplemental use regulations require lighting to only be directed on the parcel, so that part of the, excuse me, part of the supplemental use regulations that light can't shine off of the property onto the adjoining property. So I don't know what size light he's planning there, but he will have to have those lights directed only onto this plot.
Anything that's built on the property will have to go through an ABCD. Go through the code so that they'll make sure that everything is. compliant.
Good question. Quick question. Greg, you might be able to answer this. So under recommended text on parcel 5B, and this is not on 5A, but on 5B, it says no outdoor storage of vehicles will be allowed on the parcel. Are you okay with that? Or that's
There's a difference between
sales and
sales and
storage?
storage.
So it's not on 5A, but it is on 5B. So that's
Yeah.
correct. That's not like,
Yeah, I have to look. I didn't see. Didn't see that.
that would only difference.
But we have no problem with statute.
I will tell you, I've gotten questions and comments about parcel 5B about cars being stored to the west of the enterprise on non-applicable. If you do a Google look right now, you'll see cars stored there, parked there. So will that be allowed? Is it in conforming? Is it unconforming right now?
Yeah, I believe the supplementary use regulations require paving. I don't think that all of them.
It is out of conformance, and that would be.
Yeah, even the pictures, if you go and
Yeah.
you'll see them, there's the red car and the black car parked not on. Keep going. Keep going. There. The picture on the left, those are not parked on.
Yeah.
Well,
So that would require code enforcement violation. If that's out.
Again, it's a question that's come up and from neighbors in the area.
Yeah, I don't think that, when you talk about storage of vehicles, it becomes different than sales of vehicles. So so if he's working on a vehicle, well, I think 48 hours before it becomes, I don't know that part. Okay, I'm pretty sure, I apologize, I should know this. I'm pretty sure it's, if it's there for 48 hours, it's storage, but if it's for sale, then it falls under the cars and can still be there. So if the storage is, in other words, if he owns it, then he's not storing it, he's selling it. If he's repairing a vehicle, you have a certain amount of time that you can turn those over. And I'd have to look that up. I apologize. I don't recall what the difference is. Not in the song, email, I did.
Any additional questions or comments on this agenda item this evening? There is a recommended action subject to the conditions. Is there anybody willing to make a motion? So is there a second? All right, all in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Raise action, we'll look for your votes in the chat. Motion passes. Thank you, Brad. That takes us to our final item of the evening. Country Acres Dog Park. Is anybody with us? Well, you good, sir?
Good. How are you all?
And
All right, my name is Tim Kellums, Public Works and Utilities and Engineering Division, Principal Planner, Landscape Architect, here to represent Country Acres Dog Park. Earlier, before the DAB meeting, there was an open house that we had here. Some residents came and talked about that, so this is a more formal presentation on it, but we did have a chance to engage with a few members earlier this evening. So a little bit of background, the city of Wichita has been exploring locations for dog parks for many years. That's one of the big comments that we get, is basically pickleball and dog parks. You should, staff work gets a lot about pickleball complex. So that's something that we hear a lot is dog parks. Harrison Park is an example of one of the newest dog parks. That was on the east side of town. So looking for something complementary on the west side of town. In the future slide here, you'll see kind of basically kind of a dog park desert on the west side of town. So question maybe why Country Acres? There are a lot of parks over on the west side of town. There are, which is absolutely great. Kind of density over here on that side of town. So again, basically looking on the west side of town, that is just great because there, as mentioned, dog park desert over here. The existing topography and shade is a huge plus for this park. I guess I'll just ask for some participation. You raise your hand if you've been to Meridian or Canine Rooster Dog Park. Okay, we have a couple. Okay, well, if you haven't been, it is on top of a former dump. There are no trees out there right now. We're working on plans to create some shade out there, but most of you know how hot it's been this summer. It just is going to continue to get hotter. Having shade is very important. Having topography is also important. Harrison Dog Park has a lot of topography. It gets used a lot. There was actually a recent study done where we were able to track users, and there's a significant increase in people that are using dog parks and wanting to go to dog parks because along with housing and things like that, having a place for people that live in multifamily residences, a place to go outside is important. So existing topography and shade, the poor condition of the existing amenities that are there, the tennis courts, basketball courts, we'll note that that was part of the HOA. that when it was given to the city, that was something that we did not build. So it's not up to our standards, our codes. We have a much different process to ensure longevity with those assets. So those are not ours. I mean, they are ours now, but they weren't ours when we put them in. And you know, if you've been to or kind of familiar with the area, there are a lot of other parks in the area. Brown Thrush is nearby, has baseball fields over there. Red Barn is nearby as well. I believe Sunset's not that far away. Harvest is another great location with an amazing pool out there that recently invested lots of money into that one to have a really nice pool over there. So we're seeing one of the things that we're trying to do is trying to eliminate duplication of assets because they require maintenance down years and years down the road. And we're kind of seeing that a little bit with some tennis courts. We have a lot of tennis courts. People love to play tennis courts. Luckily, we can convert some of those into pickleball courts, stuff like that. So anytime that we can kind of avoid these overlap of services and things like that, that's good because that means that we're focusing on providing more different amenities without taking up the same amount of space that maybe doesn't really even get used because we have something right nearby that serves the same people. Again, I kind of mentioned it's close to multifamily residents. I'm a multifamily individual, and that's one thing that I can speak to is that having a place to take your dog and things like that, that is important for everyone. Not everyone owns a home. So kind of thinking about some people that live in different situations or different living, I guess, areas. It's easy access, and that's one thing we'll get to. You see on the map here how close it is to Ridge Road and Central. That's a great thing about Country Acres compared to some of the other parks because they are deeper nestled within neighborhoods. So have to avoid lots of trips, lots of cars going into neighborhoods. I know that's one thing, kind of the theme that was a little bit earlier was about making sure neighborhoods are safe, trying to slow cars down. More than we can keep them from don't need to drive all the way through neighborhoods, the better. So having access close to Ridge and Central, that's really a good thing, makes it easier to get to. There is a little bit of financial background. There's $750,000 for construction and $500 allocated for art. So in that $750,000, that's going to include design fees, have it designed, but also our I guess I'll move over here. We are looking at a piece of land that we are going to acquire to help add some acreage to the park. What we don't want to do is we don't want to try to, just shove everything in there. The more flexibility we have to make the design work better, that is money well spent. I don't just it's generally never a bad idea to add more park land because we've seen costs for land increasing all over the place. It does get expensive to start trying to add park land. So whenever we can and do so to help make our amenities better, it is well worth it to do that because we can hang on to it and maintain it. You can see here the map in the top left there. That's where it is within District 5. See the one right below that. You can see again kind of that desert, that dog park desert that I was talking about earlier. Harrison Dog Park is you can see it's kind of this eastern one. The one farthest east is the one that's in Andover. So still in the desert over there on the east side of town. We'll do the same. We'll do the same over here on the west side of town. That's one of the things that we hear a lot about. You can see the site here. Again, it is real close to Central and Ridge. There were apartment complexes just through the south. That burned down, I think, some time ago. So right now it's just kind of open. That area, move on here, is land that to be acquired for this project, as part of this project, to help build a parking lot in that area. One of our goals is to make sure that the parking lot, we don't want to put that so far into the park that it's kind of defeats the purpose of trying to keep people away from, going through the neighborhoods. The farther we can keep it to the existing businesses to the south, that parking lot already makes it easier because we're not going in there and just destroying trees. There's no trees out there right now because there's a building out there. So that's a great kind of, it's unfortunate that happened, but worked out well for
for us being able to acquire this piece of land. As I mentioned earlier, the tennis and basketball courts out there are to be removed as part of this right now. They're not in great condition. They aren't something that we put in, we built to our standards. As many of you know, this, there used to be a swimming pool out here. Swam in that many years ago, so remember this area. That was gifted, or given to the city to maintain. As we were going through the Aquatics master plan, that facility had, low use. It also had a lot of infrastructure that we had to be done to even repair it. It was losing a bunch of water. So that maintaining it or trying to fix it again, it just wasn't worth the money to go back through and reinvest it when we had harvest right really close by as well. You can see here on the site that there are a lot of mature trees that are on the site. We're trying to keeping as many trees as we possibly can and hopefully adding more trees in as well. Increasing our tree canopy is something that we're trying to do and maintain and trying to make sure that we create a diverse canopy as well. So you can see here along in some of the photos, if you've been out there, there's again some really nice topography out there. It's nice to have. That's not something that you find all over the place. If you've been to Brown Crush, it's pretty flat out there. I think Red Barn's pretty close to the same. So having that is a great amenity and something that having trees and stuff for dogs to run on, we feel that that's going to be very popular. That's something that's done over at Harrison. You get a chance to drive over to Harrison. There are a lot of hills out there. Dogs are playing on it, having a good time. And one of the things that I think about, I grew up and had a few dogs, and man, if you can get them tired and get them to sleep, that's always a good thing. So having some hill, having some area for them to get tired on, so you can pass out is generally always a good thing. So getting into a bubble plan. So this is a bubble plan. This is not set in stone. These are just dashed lines. We can move these bubbles as we see fit. One of the main things that we're here for is to get feedback. We want feedback to help us make the best dog park that we possibly can. What we don't want to do is just, just pop it in. And we want to make sure that we get some feedback, make sure that we hear from people to make it the best. One of the things that we do have, you can see up there to the north, we do have a buffer that's planned in. That's one thing I'd like to get some feedback on from you all and from the public is a buffer. There are residents right there, so if that's a berm, that would be great. If it's more trees, whatever we can to help make sure that we are providing a good buffer from those homes, I think is important for this project to be successful. You will note on here that there are some stars. You see those in the pins. Those are areas you can see in the top right. There's a shelter. That's something that's over at Harrison Dog Park. Shade is so important, having those places to congregate. I've met a few times with folks over at Meridian Dog Park. That is one of the things that they absolutely want to have is a shelter, because that is a great place to hang out with your neighbors, meet your neighbors and stuff. When you're kind of in your home, especially with COVID, you don't really go out and meet everyone all the time. So it's a great way to kind of meet your neighbors and everything. Also just a good place just to relax with your dog. Again, we have 3 pins. One of the reasons why we have 3 pins is so we can close one down. What we're seeing is that dogs go through and they like to use it a lot, as they do, and run around. So we can close one down for a year, then it allows the grass to come back. It allows it to reestablish again, and then we can rotate through. So generally what we do is we put the small dogs in first, then we take the big dogs the next year and put them in. The little dogs don't tear up as much, so then the big dogs come in, rotate through again. We found that that's been very successful in reestablishing, so it's not just dirt out there. That's not really what you want, that's not attractive. Doesn't really create an atmosphere that you really want to go back to. We do have a gathering and entry space. We like to have that because what ends up happening is you get like a whole bunch of dogs all coming at the same time or what have you. You want to kind of spread that out. You want to have a nice entry area, making sure that the parking lot to the south, you're able to make that function and work well. So again, I kind of talked about the parking lot.
by acquiring land to the south, we're able to use less original parkland for a parking lot. What we don't want to do is just have a whole bunch of people out on the streets. We don't really want on-street parking. We want people to park in the parking lot. One, that creates a safer atmosphere by pulling those people off, they're getting their dogs out of their car and everything. It's just better overall if they're just not out in the middle of the street. The last thing you want to do is just start driving and the dog jumps out of the car. That don't really work. So having a parking lot that accommodates the users is key to making sure that this is successful. You can see there drinking fountains and whatnot, making sure we stay hydrated for our four-legged friends and ourselves. You can see their kind of entry over there at Canine Rooster. So again, this will be fenced in, so that just like an open area. One of the things that, you know, it's kind of important, and one thing that we feel is valuable is making sure that we provide space for people to let their dogs out. Because sometimes you just drive around and you see people out there with their dogs running out in the middle of the park. That's not necessarily safe because, well, I've never met that dog before. Is it registered? Does it have its vaccines? We don't know any of those things. So providing a space for those dogs to be able to run and play and engage with their owners is important in a safe way. Instead of just letting them out in the middle of the field and, you know, pretty much anything can happen. I know dachshunds growing up and those things were still really fast, hard to catch. So, you know, bigger dogs too, making sure that it's fenced in is important. So that's my timeline. So we're gathering feedback and we're working through the design. I would imagine I'll take somewhere into the first quarter of next year. In there, we'll complete that design and issue it for construction, and then start construction second quarter to third quarter of next year. It really kind of depends on when we start to get feedback. That's one of the things that we want is to gain feedback and go through, you know, it's not a whole lot of heavy infrastructure. The parking lot's probably going to take the most amount of time than putting fences in. So we don't imagine it's going to be long construction. Design work is not going to take an insane amount of time, but I like to make sure we get feedback. So with that, I think that's the question. So what we'd like to see in the dog park, what thoughts and concerns do you have? It'd be great to get some feedback on that. And then anything you'd like for us to keep in mind while we're designing. Again, here for feedback. And I guess we'll open up to any questions. I guess I'll mention David Wires here, superintendent of park maintenance is here. So if you have any questions for him. We also have our designer, Aaron, from Baughman is also here as well. So we have a whole crew that should be able to answer any questions that you do have.
Feedback from the board on Country Acres dog.
I do. Is there going to be a targeted campaign to outreach and get feedback from residents that will be directly impacted by this construction?
We reached out and put in mailbox to hopefully get them to come out here. I think a few of them did show up. I would like to continue to get feedback and outreach from that. I don't think we haven't gotten to construction outreach yet, but that's something that we can look at and do.
Tim, can you go back to the bubble map?
Sure.
So I know you've talked about the buffer there. One thing I would be concerned with is that becoming a camping ground for homeless. With those properties there on the north side, all having fences, would be kind of a shield. There's kind of that no man's land between the park fence, their fence, and trying to keep that from being a camping zone. And I don't know if a berm does that, because if you had the berm, you could camp between the neighbor's fence and the berm, be shielded from the dogs, right? And it'd be real hard for anyone to see, especially deep into the park. And so you gotta be careful about that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think, you know, we found that evergreens are a great place to put up camp shop. And so that evergreens do a pretty good job of blocking. sound, so they're great for that, but they're also provide a good place to camp. So I think berm is probably better because there's a little more visibility rather than putting evergreen trees. So I think that's just a delicate balance that we're gonna have to take. So if we feel that just space is enough, then maybe, that's something I'd like to hear is just space enough, or do we need a berm? Is that necessary? Or we feel the drop, the positives outweigh the negatives, or how, just kind of wanted to get some
And
feedback
that's
on
also
that.
a greater maintenance area that you're gonna have to take care of.
Yeah.
We've already, I don't know how big that bubble berm is right now, but that buffer space. But just getting access, because you don't really mow the dog parks. Dogs take care of it. They kind of trample it, keep it down.
Yeah, I do think that we do
Do
bring
you
in
mow them?
We still mow, yeah.
Okay.
Cause you got the outside fences, and everything, so,
Okay.
yeah, you still need mowed.
I just, again, just from a camping perspective, you could hide between the berm and the homeowner's fence. Be shielded, so.
Right, maybe a stone wall or something.
Yeah, and then the other concern is obviously, I know there's other parks in the vicinity that have amenities and so forth, but really a dog park, there's really not much to it in terms of infrastructure. So if this doesn't work out, it's not as popular as we might think it could be, even though District 5 has the most number of dog licenses in the city without a dog park, because I've researched this. If it doesn't work out, it's easily adaptable to something else, because we're not putting in a ton of infrastructure. We're basically putting in fencing and parking. So the long-term play, if it doesn't work out, it's easily changeable.
Yeah, one of the great things too is that adding in the shelters are a pretty great amenity just in general with benches and things, so this doesn't work out, then there are good alternatives and amenities that we still can keep. It's really just the fences that are the issue.
And then the parking lot, I think we talked about 30 spaces roughly, that removes it from being on-street parking. Which is when it was the pool, all the parking was on street, there was no parking.
All on street park.
So this would eliminate that traffic congestion on Country Acres and Denmark by having it there. Because the only entry would be right off of Country Acres, correct? Because you don't want other gates on other sides, because then people can leave them open, or so the dogs get out, kids get out, so.
We'll have maintenance gates, we'll have
Sure.
to get the mowers in to mow,
Okay,
so there'll be maintenance gates.
those would be locked.
Yeah, those will be locked.
Thank you.
I have a quick question on the budget. Is the $750, does that include the maintenance over time? Or is it $750 to just create this stuff?
For the construction and buying the property and
Design work.
design work.
Engineer with, so.
Because we're gonna
very
put
little-
shelters, we're gonna put some little shelters out there, benches and stuff. Concrete, it's gonna be concrete.
There's the property acquisition for the parking lot. It's the design cost. And the infrastructure with the shelters, the gates, the fencing, et cetera.
Irrigation.
It's really a minimal investment for what you're getting, since we're not having to buy land for the dog park.
We already have it.
Right, park's already there. I don't know what we spend on Harrison, you know?
Yeah, we got a donation of 200,000 out there, and then we had 400,000 of our own. And then we had to put another 100,000 in the irrigation, so we spent about 700,000 altogether. Once it all got done and completed.
Equipment.
No,
I'm
that,
serious, I'm trying to come up with a sprinkler system, fencing, maintenance, design fees, engineers are expensive, I guess.
I
It
can't
just
hear the
seems like a
comment.
lot.
but she's asking, how does it all add up to that? What are all the things?
But that's.
That's what they call
That's an
That's
extra fifty.
additional, yeah.
So what would the art be?
So that would be the design of the shelters, what the gate entry looks like, you know, kind of other elements that we want to add to it to make it more welcoming, more of a theme maybe. There's been talk about making it a dog park that pays tribute to service animals, right? And so kind of maybe a way to help recognize and honor that. If you've been to any of our other dog parks, there's signage and there's, you know, lists of do's and don'ts and just things that make it more welcoming.
Okay.
So
And that's
part of the
included
design,
in the art.
part of the art, yeah. Art/design. So, but not design of the facility or design of aesthetics.
Does it include obstacles and agility?
That's one thing we want feedback. We do have some of those at other dog parks. They do get some use. We don't see, but I haven't heard of a champion like winner, winner, but that doesn't mean we can't have one. So, but if that's something that we're hearing, that's something that we want, that's something that we can look at. Again, yeah, thanks all. Thank you guys for the conversation. I'll let Aaron, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add or.
I think we'd like to get feedback on lighting.
Yeah.
What?
Lighting.
Lighting.
Are the dog park hours? Would be, what are the hours on the dog park?
Basically, all of our the parks that have dog parks in them are set up on the midnight to 6 AM. So, but the use of dog parks go away. None of our other dog parks have lighting in the dog park itself. It has some, what do you call that? Ambient lighting from the area around it, you know, and maybe one light in the parking lot. But the dog parks themselves aren't lit. So the use of it goes away pretty quickly in the evenings. They're not out there till like midnight, you know,
wanna be able
hanging
to
out.
watch what you step.
Fair.
I would say, I mean, I don't know when you start getting into like, it may be CD stuff, but like I like lighting. I mean, as a woman after dark in that area, I would like lighting. Maybe in dog area number 2, 15-foot pole or lower than that. That's when we start getting restrictions, right? Is if it's over 15 feet, something like that.
Definitely have to pay attention to the neighborhood, the houses around.
Okay.
They have really good directional lighting if we add it in the parking lot there. The apartment complex already has some lighting in their parking lot area, some wall packs. There is a dog park in California, Los Angeles, that lights up at night. It's really beautiful. It's got some cool lighting and it's like a multi-million-dollar dog park.
Don't go this.
Is there lighting in the gathering space? Is there some general lighting in the gathering space?
Possibly, that's why we decided.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from a parking lot security and that gathering spot, that's probably where you want to have some kind of measure of lighting security, but you know, once you get further into the park over later in the evening, it's not gonna be used as much. So during that transition period, as people are leaving the park at twilight, you know, having that gathering space and the parking lot, some kind of security lighting makes a lot of sense.
It's also lighting attracts people later on at night. They use that as a gathering place. So at some point you want that light to shut off. You don't want it to be on until midnight because people take advantage of that. Show up and party and do things.
How do you measure or gauge usage at other dog parks in the city? Like, how do you have a good feel of whether it's being utilized or not for the space or whether it can be?
All these Facebook pages show up and you see all these people out there using it. I mean, they all have their own Facebook pages and stuff. And we monitor it. We go by, our maintenance staff are out there.
We also had I think it was a grant on. Can't speak to it fully, but I know that there was there's a company called Playcore. They basically track, doesn't use like a whole bunch of your data, but it's pings to cell phone towers, you know, because you're getting pings all the time. And it can just track your location. You can see a whole bunch of people at the dog park. It was amazing seeing I can't remember when they presented it, but they presented that, I think at Park Board. Probably earlier this year, and it was just this whole cluster of people, right, so, Harrison's a lot bigger, usually like to see about like an acre, or a little less than an acre for each pen, so this one, I have a feeling it's gonna be a little bit more of like a neighborhood level, because these are about, I think it's about like somewhere between 20 to 25,000 square foot for each, it really kind of depends on how big the gathering space grows or the buffer grows, but that's about, so these are gonna be a little bit smaller than some of our other ones that we have.
There was an open house proceeding this meeting.
Yeah.
Any highlights, concerns, voice in that session?
Some of the questions were about lighting, about parking, about, is it done, is this approved, and was it communicated to the neighborhood? Could other uses be done instead of the dog park? And we pointed out the adjacency of Red Barn and Brown Thrush, and Harvest, not wanting to duplicate services. The need for this has been about my entire time on council, as well as being on the park board. When is West Wichita going to get a dog park? And again, this is an adaptive reuse of this property that could be changed out fairly easy. The fact that none of our dog parks have natural shade makes it real nice. Not only for the dogs, but for the people that are gathering with their dogs. So those are primary concerns that I heard. Did you hear anything different, Tim?
Yeah, I think so, I think one of the things that some people had concerns about was like traffic off Denmark and things like that. So that was one that are strategically making sure that the parking, stays to the south, close to central as we can. Just so there's not a whole bunch of people just driving through. That's not our goal. The goal is to keep people off the street and keep us close to central and, pop up, get in, leave.
Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I have two comments. Is this wheelchair accessible?
We plan for it to be, yes.
Okay, good. That burn, I would suggest native grasses. And there's all sorts of sizes of grasses, but native grasses are drought tolerant rather than something more fancy that needs lots of water and mowing and trimming.
I know we've had a lot of pushes for pollinator, things like that, so that's something that we can explore and.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Any feedback and comment? With that, that's the pin drop on tonight's meeting. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you.
Thank you all.
With that, we are adjourned.
Did y'all hear us?
Next meeting.
Make you work.
Okay, at the water treatment.
How are you?
Hey, Brian, these ladies want to talk, extend the process. How are you doing?
Questions about how many people the dog park is going to accommodate.
You didn't get to answer asking questions.
Thank you.
Pretty good, Dennis.
You did great.
Yeah.
Or for the public to speak. I have questions about how many people and animals you're expecting.
There it is. I don't. I think that was. And so I don't imagine. I don't.